Hi, welcome back for your twin flame toolkit. There's also a video very separate for those of you who are new, so I'll try and hyperlink it into the box, otherwise just go through to the actual channel and you will locate it. It's a very new channel, although I have been on YouTube for 3 years. I do have another channel and the link will be inside the box, so if you are wanting to make a booking again, connected to the twin flame path, the link will be directly below. Now, this video in particular is surrounding what you can use to assist you into your twin flame journey. Please look at your north node. It's quite important in the twin flame journey, and even collectively as a human being. By us actually looking at our south node, it's where we came from. If you believe in past life, it's directly connected to past life, or energies of what you were previously and what you need to move away from and move into, in a sense, of your north node. Generally speaking, to locate that, you look at your rising sign. There are calculators on the internet you can get, otherwise book a reading and I'll give you a hand with it. Also be mindful with the moon energies. You can actually use the moon energies to move you through purging, to help you through ascension symptoms. If you find it's shut down, sometimes it can be due to blockages and your pain body experience being too heavy. So it will tend to shut down while you're doing things, and then it will awaken again as you're moving through your ascension process. And, you know, ascension to a degree can take a long time. If we fully ascend, we'd physically pass over. So, you know, yes, we have, in a sense, the channel where we go through past, you know, into the 5D and above the fifth chakra. So yes, through the seventh chakra systems it can open up. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying as for you to completely have the Kundalini awakening, it can take a very long time. When it shuts down, another thing that can be going on is that you've gone off track. So it can, so to speak, shut down because of pain body experience, and you can actually stare off and you can move towards perhaps a soulmate connection, or you're still stuck in a karmic related connection. And so physically your Kundalini will calm down a bit. But once you've adjusted your bearings, you will find that a lot of the mirroring will come through any 3D relationship you're in, or other people projecting directly connected to you, and the trigger points will come back up again for you to purge. Because, you know, being a twin flame, if you're a real twin flame, what you'll find is regardless of who you're with, it will come up, because part of your process is to come to wholeness with yourself. So it's kind of an awkward thing where we're looking at it very 3D. And from a spiritual connection point of view, if you are a true twin flame, you'll find that's something you actually can't cut the umbilical cord from. And when it's divinely guided you energetically, when tuned in and plugged in, you'll know when something's changing and when it's rejigging. December pretty much should go quiet for those of you who are probably coming into union. That's not that you've tuned out of them. It's more that you're recouping and you're in the realization and assessment process stage of it. If everything you've learned, you're culminating it, and you're moving forward into the new year with, okay, what to from here. Now, it's interesting because we are ending an era of scorpionic energy with particular planets in the placement it was in. So it could have felt very much like the death of your old self. Which is quite common. Yeah, it's natural. It's natural that that feeling would be like that. For you, there is a lot of changes going on. And again, do look at your node to actually help navigate you through. If you can really start acting more like your rising sign, definitely look at, you know, what is covering that. At a later date, I will be doing videos connected to it, as well as the mirror, numerology for twins, and definitely during the live sessions, if you have questions, obviously me being a twin flame as well as a psychic medium, I will answer the questions for you in relation to your twin path and how to move through it. What is coming up in the 1st of January, we're moving into Moon in Capricorn. Now that is a partial solar eclipse on the 6th. Now the house that it's falling in for you is the 2nd and the 8th. Now I'll go into the information of what these things mean and how they directly correlate with your twin flame path. And it's really important to keep an eye on Saturn, what's going on in the sense of a transit, what's coming up for you energetically. Definitely the moon, in a sense, when you're in your knowingness and you're using your crown chakra and you're intuitive and in tune and you're trusting your feelings and vibrations, you know, especially when we can have betrayal, we can really go back into the pain body experience and have to reconnect with ourselves. So when we're doing that kind of transition, what does happen is we do question our intuition. So the moon frequency is very important for us to get reconnected in with ourselves again, where we can start trusting that aspect of the intuition again. Now the sun frequency as well is equally important, and that's because it's connected to the ego. Masculine frequencies, father figures, moon energy, mother figures, feminine energies. Now the yin and the yang is in both. So we could look at the yin and yang as the sun and the moon, but it's actually in both, which is probably why we see 1-1-1-1, because there's equally dark and light in the masculine frequency, equally dark and light in the moon frequency. Because when we're in the moon frequency, intuitively when we're connected and our crown's activated, we intuitively can sense what's going on. So we're trusting in our instincts, regardless of what we're seeing on the 3D. We're having a trust in the process and the bigger picture of things. Especially when it comes up in a card reading, you've got to tune into yourself and say, okay, does this directly relate to me? Don't take everything as gospel in readings unless it's a private reading, and then always check in with yourself. No matter who you get a reading from, sometimes things can go in a reading and they were meant to be to trigger you because you were in question mode regardless. So when you're in question mode, what happens is it comes about to help you question it doubly so that you can go back and go, no, but this is my truth, because you should never be coming to a place where, you know, it should more be a check-in for the energy or guidance to steer you back on track. And especially when we're inexperienced in the twin flame journey, and we're just wanting that, okay, am I on the right track? These are my downloads, and then when I psychically get the downloads, I will give them to you directly. So both are equally important. In the lower aspect and the darker aspect, what you'll find is the moon frequency is really just not quite trusting your intuition. So during the time of the first solar eclipse, which is a partial, and that's on the 6th, the energy of what's coming through for that in the 2nd and 8th house is something you're going to be working on for 6 months. Anything else around that time as well that is really highlighted for you can come through where it's weeks later you gain some sense of clarity. So during the month, don't make any rash decisions. Really, if there's tower moments, if there's things you hear through the grapevine connected to your twin flame or intuitively, trust it, keep going, keep your foundation, you know, as grounded as possible, and persevere forward. Trust in the process. It is coming up in your possessions, personal resources, land and material value. So it may be you're very concerned about that, or you've been working towards it. It can be something in the bigger midst of things that you're dealing with a bigger situation. Also in the 8th house, it's other people's resources and death, regeneration, ability to bounce back. So again, it can be questioning your life as a whole. It can be legacies that are coming through to you if you had previously someone who had passed over. Also what you want to leave behind moving forward, you know, what you stand for, what your belief system is moving forward. But anything else around that time that does come up is something you really need to pay close attention to. It's a very good time to manifest, providing you're away from the aspect of ego. If you're in that egoic state, we always get the polar opposite and what we're wanting. So what you tend to get is, you know, Tesla explains it, it's like intuitively thinking about it, which is building it in your mind. And the heart chakra and the upper heart chakra is directly connected to the manifestation of that, as well as the lower chakra. So when you're doing that and you're like, this is what I would love to have, if you're in fair-based frequency of yes, but I don't want it to look like X, Y, and Z, you're actually getting both because you're intuitively looking at it. But if you're in the belief system that you're worth it, you're going to get what you desire. It will come to you naturally. Now, on the 21st of January, I don't know why I was going to say July. July may be very important for you, connected to a person. The moon is going to be in Leo. This is going to be a blood moon as well. It's going to be a total eclipse. Now, it can denote towers or sudden information coming in on both sides with both moons. So around that time, be mindful, especially since it falls in your second and your third house. It is connected to communication, and it is connected to your assets and your finances. So if you've been waiting to hear for a job, or you've been waiting to hear about communication or being able to get that foundation and movement forward, it is noting it, but it might actually take you by surprise. So allow the rest of the information to flood through in the weeks coming, but don't jump the gun, because some things may yet be unseen, okay? When it comes to the sun frequency, it enters Aquarius on the 20th, the same time roughly a day before of the blood moon and the total lunar eclipse. Now, it's in your third house, your ninth house, and your 11th house. This, again, is connected to communication. So make sure, especially with the sun energy in masculine frequency, that when you're communicating, you're not coming from a place of fear-based pain body experience and ego. Try and keep as grounded as possible. And I have been advising people that were on my other channel, jumping forward here, because I offer two very different things on both channels. To get into light body experience, it may have been in December that, regardless of Christmas, you were getting super hungry. It's usually to gain the energy and frequency that you're going to need to move through the month, because it can be quite a hectic month, especially since with all the retrogrades, we're really wanting to get on top of things, and it's like we're trying to cram 3 months into 1 month. But just go easy on yourself and try and get into light body experience to clear the chakras. You know, you can do the meditation, try and drink fluid. Try and find some sense of a rock. Now, that needs to be you, yes, but at the same time, it's some sense of a routine, because what you're going to find with the other planets directly involved, they can be quite flighty. So we can actually, a bit like Dory, start one thing, then really come to a place where we're forgetting what we started, losing interest in it, getting sidetracked, and starting off on a tangent, which means it's going to be difficult, not because we don't have the energy, but because we're flighty and the focus is going to be sort of problematic. So try and keep a sense of a routine, see it through, maybe keep a notepad as to the things you're getting in downloads. If you're working and you're having these bright, miraculous ideas, write them down and keep focusing on that one task, or write a memo to yourself to go back and actually finish that task, because you're going to need to be grounded to complete tasks. The communication and the belief systems is coming up for you with the sun. So it might be your religious beliefs, your philosophies, your ways of seeing the actual twin flame journey, or collectively your whole life, as well as people that you're directly connecting with. It might be you either are on the higher aspect of things, connecting in with these things and feeling very plugged in, or at the lower frequency, feeling very disconnected from these things and out of sort. So again, the moon and the sun is going to be quite important for you to get grounded. Be in awareness of it, and generally to address these areas, it's better to actually acknowledge it and to say, okay, I had someone ask me one day, how do you directly address abandonment related issues? And there's various ways, but it's really about putting yourself to a degree out there. And it doesn't mean dating, I mean more allowing people to enter into your space, rebuilding that trust up with yourself, your moral compass, your senses. The same situation when it comes to your intuition. So, you know, if that has been something that you've directly dealt with, to deal with it in that format is going to help you readjust and regain trust in yourself with your intuition, how you deal with people, who you feel spiritually is your tribe, and who you think you are very comfortably. You know, sometimes when we feel off kilter with our associates, it may be because our job is not in alignment with us anymore, especially in the twin flame path, or it can be that, like I said, it either is or it isn't, but just being that truth connected to it. You know, always get to the point where a yes means yes and a no means no. And if you're unsure, be very truthful about that, so you're always in alignment and with truth with yourself. Mercury in Capricorn on the 5th, very close to the partial solar eclipse, is going to be with third eye chakra and root chakra. And again, I can go on to mention the actual chakras being activated each time, but you're far better off to get into a habit of actually clearing your chakras. You know, if you're feeling out of balance, you know you need, you know, that balance coming through. That can be through your smoothies, through your juices, through drinking fluid, using movements and yoga connected to those areas, or the meditation, you know, with the release of those areas. Throat chakra, having issues with communication, just fine tune it to a point you're paying attention to your body. So with the communication sector and Mercury in Capricorn, you've got the 1st, 4th, 8th, and 8th house. Okay, so it is connected to the way you're seeing yourself, the way you're expressing yourself. So if your work domain is connected to communication, it can be very positive. Again, when it does come to any issues with your house, any conflict you're directly dealing with, again, be very cautious with the way in which you're communicating, because it's coming up in third eye chakra with the root chakra. So be grounded in the way you're communicating. It may be, again, that you're fundamentally worried about the basis of a home at the moment, or your safety and your protection. And this can actually be, again, a blockage from base chakra. So just pay attention to it, especially if we're struggling with finances. It can be connected to your heart chakra, where you're feeling a lack of worth connected to it, or that in order to attain finances, you're having to fight for it. And that's an internal blockage as well. It also can be a time when, with your communication, you need to intuitively think. And like I said, with the 2 moon stages, there can be at left field communication coming in. So you do need to be mindful of that through that communication, to use your intuition connected to it and have trust in that. And if you don't feel comfortable, don't make any decision you don't feel comfortable with. The second transit of Mercury is moving through Aquarius, and that's on the 24th, again, very close to the total eclipse. However, on this occasion, throat chakra and root chakra is activated, so it can mean communication. Now, the houses activated in this area for you personally are going to be the 1st house, the 4th house, and the 9th house. Now, that is connected to who you are, what your abilities are to actually have a stable foundation, so to speak, and you know, generate an income. And again, it's in your communication house. So providing if you're waiting on a job, for instance, it can mean communications coming in. And again, try to be grounded, and if you're really not sure about it, don't jump in regardless. Make sure that you're doing something that you intuitively know makes sense to you. But it can be due to an unstable foundation, needing to communicate the truth in relation to something. Also, your spiritual beliefs in that area might be coming through as well. So anything to do with your belief systems and long distance travel, any domestic related issues, or issues going on with karmics, children, you know, if you have children, that can be coming up, as well as the way you are expressing yourself, being yourself, and being in your own frequency. So your communication may be very direct towards people, especially with Mars transiting at the moment. It can be quite direct communication with certain individuals, but try to speak away from ego when it comes to that, so that you can get the best results out of it, but be in your truth. Now, Saturn also for you as a twin is important in general, because when we see how Saturn is transiting, it's actually trying to show us what we need to look at, what we need to change, and the truth of a situation. It's going to be in Capricorn, and it is connected to root chakra. So again, it can be towards our foundation, our grounding. It's in the 7th house, connected to partner, spouse, open enemies. Now, this can be if you're in a codependent relationship, or if the frequency is at that state any longer. If you are in fear-based frequency connected to it, you do need to look at it and say, okay, why haven't I moved away from that frequency? Can I not do X, Y, and Z on my own? Yes, love is separate to an aspect of the traditional realms of what previous relationships were. And definitely in the second wave, the connections and the paradigms that are getting broken down are connected to modern day relationships. So It can be that you're looking at it and, you know, previously speaking, perhaps you were looking at relationships very differently, and equally so it may be you're looking at it and needing to grow beyond that point. If you are in a karmic relationship and you do know you're staying and you're thinking, but I haven't had communication from my twin, but you know, it's due to what society would think, it's due to my finances, I have to stay here because I'm unable to move. Saturn's really going to show you where you need to take your power back and where you need to directly deal with those issues, because Saturn's sort of like the father figure of the universe, and especially in a sense when Juno moves forward in a natural transit, which tends to be next month. I still have to look into that again. Usually if movement hasn't happened within the twin flame connection, Juno does tend to activate it to a point to push that forward from February onwards. Now, you're going to look at the factor of, can you bring this back to life? Can you bring the connection back to life? Can they bring the connection back to life? Not what it was yesterday. If you're having direct communication, even just simply checking in with yourself in relation to how you directly feel about it is going to be super important, because a lot of times we tend to think, well, we haven't heard from them, so what can we do? We always are doing something on ourselves, which is part of the aspect of the twin flame journey. And we tend to think in a sense of, well, we're not working on the connection because all we're doing is working on ourselves. But that's an aspect of any connection. If we don't have ourselves as a foundation, we can't have any connection correctly. And it moves back to an aspect of a codependent relationship. And you find in the twin flame journey, once you've activated certain aspects and realms of yourself, you tend to really not fit into that paradigm anymore. So it does make it very hard to go back to an old way of having connections. Your aspects of your belief systems in that sector is also going to grow. And with Jupiter in Sagittarius, your sacral chakra is going to be activated. Now, this is connected to your 7th and your 10th house. Now, again, spouses coming up. Again, do look at any codependent patterns. Don't be in fear-based frequency thinking everything's going to be the same. Anytime you have a reconnection, it's never the same. And if it is, it's because something spiritually you're doing has not changed, okay? Now, in the 10th house, again, it can be connected to your career, family members. If you have a twin with a karmic or an ex that has children, these energies and areas can come up, and there will be growth in that area. There will be change happening in that area. Pluto in Capricorn, sacral chakra and root chakra. It's in your 6th house, 8th house and 11th house. Again, your health, your employment, other people's resources, ability to bring this situation back to life. And also the people you're directly connecting with are going to change. Now, it can bring about endings and new beginnings. So if you're needing to leave aspects behind, even at an energetic level, it will come up for you to physically let it go. In other areas, if it's coming back for a rejig for you to look at, and it may be very quite unexpectedly. Neptune in Pisces, 3rd eye chakra and sacral chakra. The way you're actually looking at yourself may be very much changing. Any aspect of your job, it can have a change happening in that area. But again, it may be you're looking at it very 3D. And I keep mentioning 3D because when we do look at the connection, we need to understand the 5D. So when we're getting triggered and we think we haven't heard from our twin and all the rest of it, we're looking at it 3D. So you get into the fear-based, panic-based mode and you're thinking, because I haven't heard from my twin, it's over. True twins don't end. The spiritual connection's there. Your interconnection is always there. Once it's aligned correctly, it returns. Now, even if you haven't, if you've purged an aspect, it ends up being reunion. And yes, you can move towards union, but you need to move into union with self first. So that's addressing your North Node, doing the internal work on the pain body experience, which would be Chiron, looking at the aspects of what's coming up in any transit very separately to just your chart in that area, and dealing with the blocks as they come. But really getting your base foundation and your North Node, working on the North Node, you integrating that into your life so that you're in alignment with your higher destiny. So With Neptune, the way you're perceiving yourself might be off kilter. You may be more surprised about your abilities than you thought. And 9 times out of 10 in the twin flame journey, you find you never thought you'd be able to achieve certain tasks. You never thought you'd be able to cope with certain dynamics. And before you know it, you're like, wow, I didn't think my perspective or perception would have been such. So it can be a very distorted time at the moment when you're meditating upon maybe your own personal views of who you are and what you're capable of and what you would and wouldn't have dealt with. So, you know, really always having maybe half an hour time, you know, half an hour a day to have a bit of quiet time is really going to give you that aspect to ground yourself and hear your higher intuition and tune into your moon frequency. What is coming up with Uranus and Taurus through this transit will be crown chakra and heart chakra. So I could say head and heart, but not really, because it's more the 5D aspect of the connection and the heart chakra. So the placement in Taurus is going to feel quite awkward because Taurus wishes things to stay stable and the same in this area, but with the planet, it's just not wanting that to happen. So it can be quite an uneasy feeling of what it's asking you to grow into. And that can be the way your education, your philosophies, your religion, and your belief system's going, and the potential of this connection to go the distance. That it is a forever thing, but with you spiritually growing, you will grasp and you will understand that factor. Also, what's coming up is the 12th house, and this is very interesting because, again, it can be, the way I perceive it in a shape or form in the twin flame journey can be lower frequency, karmic energies, past tense or current. It can be you if you're in a karmic relationship, believing you can't move beyond it, really needing to address that, especially in the placement of Neptune. When it does come to karmic energies, if you are interacting with karmic energy, you're recreating karma. So it's coming up in the house for you to actually address. And Saturn will assist you to actually look at that if it's not in alignment with you. If there is that aspect going on, you will be looking at it and addressing it, and it will be coming up regularly. When it does come down to it with that placement, another thing you'll notice is you may stay up quite late in relation to what you're going to do with your spirituality, with your direct connection in to your twin. Now, with symptoms of fatigue where you can't sleep, it might be you're very tired during the day and then you find you're more settled at night time, it's because you energetically will be getting downloads from so many people. It will feel overwhelming that the only time you can physically concentrate, become creative, can be at the in the evening. So if that's what's going on, it can be due to that factor. Especially with your spirituality, and if you're working in the realm of, say, YouTube, for instance, and you have a channel, it can be the reasons why you're actually up so late and you can channel better at night time is because you're not having those energies directly tag onto you where you can telepathically tune into source and have that interconnection. Mars in Aries, 1st January, very close to the first solar partial eclipse, right? Now, this is what you're going to fight for. It's going to be, again, with certain planets, it can be headbutting with aspects of communication, but I'm feeling more, you know, again, with employment, direct communication, very straightforward communication. You probably find that you're moving into a frequency where you can't beat around the bush. It is going to be where you're going to be more direct than you usually are, which may come as a surprise to you. You can be also looking at your health and you know what you can do in the realm of employment and changing things. When it does come to the 11th house, it can be people you're directly working with and what your aspirations are moving forward. So it can be with the throat chakra and root chakra, really trying to cement that foundation into a point where you're physically moving projects forward and jobs forward, and it can be quite a busy time. Yeah, wasn't very organised here. Okay, Venus house in Sagittarius on the 7th, which is very close again to the solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse, heart chakra and sacral chakra. Now, 5th house is with your relationships, your personal creativity, and children. So passionately speaking, what you're going to be working on, you've been very strict with yourself. It's going to be your 5th house, which is connected to children, your creativity and romance. The 6th house, jobs, personal services, health and employment. The 7th house, partners, spouse, and open enemies. So it can be where you're codependent. If you're in a codependent relationship and you're like, I have to stay here because, you know, my finances aren't in order, we have children, but I spiritually am not connected to this person. This will be something that'll really come up in your Venus house. You'll either be putting more energy in and accepting it, but that can be where the Kundalini shuts down for a while because you're in pain body experience and you're attempting to address any threatening nature of things. And again, looking at your North Node will help you understand if that's part of your spiritual path. The 12th position in the Venus house is your interconnection with your soulmate twin flame. Okay, so it's going to be, if you do choose to stay in a karmic relationship, it will become quite suffocating, especially if it's not in alignment with you. If there's any karmic frequencies of lower interactions at a romantic level and you aren't spiritually connected to these people or the person, this could come up in a karmic sense as well as something that shall be revealed because it's falling in the 12th house. So it can be the higher frequency or the lower. It can be almost, it's sort of like deemed as fame, but not for good purposes, or fame for being, you know, beautiful and exotic. Just be careful, especially when it comes to the 12th house position. Now, wounds. Always look at Chiron connected to it. And again, the South Node, which will be previous life. So Chiron in Pisces, for you personally, has the 7th house activated, which is connected to partnerships, spouses, and again, you know, people that you had depended upon at some point, but more in a codependent way, an old-fashioned way. Other people's resources, legacies, death, abilities to bounce back at a financial, emotional, spiritual level, that's coming up, as well as your education, your belief system. And in the 10th house, the way people look at you, what you're able to contribute in an employment-related setting, and parents. So that can be karmics, it can be other people's children, you know, in the twin flame connection. So when it comes to the wounds, overall you can be looking at childhood wounds, you know, perhaps from mum and dad or whatever transpired in that situation, all the way through to what happened in your connections overall. If you are in a karmic connection, be cautious, because generally what will happen is if that's not divinely guided, at some point they will start mirroring towards you, very similar to your twin flame, if you haven't purged and released certain dynamics. And there can be very quick changes, you know, moving into January. So stay grounded. Definitely come through and have a look at your actual video connected to your twin flame path between you and them. I've got it for both zodiac signs, yours and theirs. And I will see you during the month for the live sessions as well for my psychic downloads. Love and light.